over a couple of the fundamental principles of the hooks. So, we kind of covered it last week, and we're about to start covering it again, just because it's super useful for understanding how the body moves, right? And so in boxing, we've got three different primary means of generating power, right? What are they? Rotation is what you meant, right? What else? Shifting of the weight from one side to the other, and the raising and the lowering of the elevation of all that weight, right? So we've got this, right? That's the rotation. We've got this. That's the shifting of the weight from one side to the other. And we've got this. Now, it's best to apply as many of those different means of generating power as possible at all times, but you can't do that because there are limitations inherent to the different types of movement you're trying to do that will affect which ones you can use. That being said, when you can integrate more than one, it's going to be better. Does that make sense? All right, so the general principle with the hook is it starts with rotation. And if you want to put more power into the punch, you have to increase your acceleration room. So what do I do to do that? I use contrary motion or inverse motion, converse, reverse motion, whatever you want to call it. I'm creating more space. So if my target is going to be my center line, which generally it should be in most cases, I want to be able to put as much space between my fist and the point of contact, which is going to be a couple inches just past the center line, right? Because I want to punch through the target. Now, in order to create more space here, if I throw this punch from right here to right here, I have a very limited amount of space. So what I have to do is try to create extra space. So how do I do that? By rotating the other way. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to prime my weight in this position. And then I'm going to use my foot rotation because it's small and it's fast to be a way of initiating the movement. This turns, when the foot pivots, it's going to bring my knee around, my knee's going to drag my hip forward, my hip's going to bring my shoulder forward, my shoulder's going to drag my elbow's going to drag my fist. So I load the weight here and I create the space. And people all over the place are going to be like, oh, you're creating a telegraph. Well, here's the thing. If you're throwing your punches in combination, which you should be, when I throw the preceding punch, look, what did I just do with my left shoulder? I put it in position to create more acceleration room. So when you hear somebody say that, call them a donkey and ignore them. So we're here. The weight's going to be loaded into this fist, not while I'm in extension, unless you're throwing across. If you're throwing across because you're moving, it's absolutely okay to use this type of lateral motion to load the foot. But when you're throwing a straight, you need to complete the punch first. Why? Because the punch is thrown on the center line. And when you throw that punch, you pull your head off, but you leave your weight back because a straight is the longer range of the punches when you're looking at a straight and a cross. So if I need to maintain that range, my weight stays back. When I retrieve the fist, that's when I'm going to load this into the hook. Now, the rotation drags the fist. You want to drag the fist because you want to use all the weight of your body. If you punch from the hip, you ignore your legs. Your legs are like 40%-ish of your body weight. Why would you want to ignore that? You don't want to ignore that, so you use it. So while you're in this position, you put 90+% of your weight here. You can initiate the foot movement and bring the weight across. Now, what foot did my weight end up on?
Right.
The right. Started on the left, rotated, and what's happening to my body? What, if you pay attention. I'm here. Now where am I?
You're offline.
I'm offline over here, right? I moved from here to here. Can everybody see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you can't, move so that you can see it. Look, right? If this is my center line, I'm here. Notice how my chin is still inside my knee. Right, there's an invisible box here. Don't put your head off the box, inside the box. This turns, and now I'm over here. You see that? I artificially lifted my foot here because I typically take a small step. You don't have to do that, but That's another way to add more power. If you can't get enough rotational force, use the foot and step. Now you're dragging all your body weight farther across the center line, and you're bringing your fist with it. Or you're bringing it with your fist. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to work on that today. There's some fundamental principles there. Rotation and weight shift. And I know that rotation and weight shift are not exactly the strong suit among this population. So it stands to reason that working on that will be beneficial for other parts of your life as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, put your gloves on, fall in a heavy bag, and I'll wait further instruction. Well, you can start warming up, but then when I tell you, we're going to start working on those hooks.
Jeff?
Yes.
What's the next step?
All right, so first thing that we need to acknowledge is that there is a big loud noise coming from over there. So I need you to pay attention. If you can't hear, put yourself in a position from which you can hear. All right, so we're going to start with the lead hook. The lead hook is probably the easiest, but people get confused or they overcomplicate it. So we're going to make it nice and easy. So everybody's going to get in your fight stance. You can do it right here if you want to watch before you try it on the bag. And we're just going to squat. And then to the best of your ability, you're going to rotate this foot. If you got to look at your foot to practice it, that's fine. But what's happening to my weight? It's shifting from one side to the other, right? That's what I want you to focus on right now. But I want you to focus on it in front of the bag as if you were about to punch the bag, right? Look at your foot when you need to. Make sure you maintain your balance the whole way through. But I want you to practice shifting with the rotation. Now, if your pivot ability is limited, then I want you to focus on the weight shift from the lead side to the rear side. Once you're comfortable, you can go ahead and try actually hitting the target. All right? All right, give it a whirl. We're going to come by and take a look. We're going to solve this right now. All right. What does a hook look like? No. Willie, go into my left side top drawer fast. Run over there. Grab me a damn marker. Throw it over here if you have to.
Your arm up.
Nope. Thank you. All right. See, now y'all are overcomplicating it. What's that?
Hook.
A hook. Thank you. Now, what are the distinct characteristics of the hook? What's the most noticeable thing about this? A curve. What's the difference between a hook and a straight line? This is a crooked straight line, but a straight line, this. Right? That is the thing that we get the word hook from when we're talking about boxing. So if your target is this, the hook as a punch goes like this. You see that? That's what we're looking for. What's in the way is your opponent's arms. So if my head is the target, the hook has to come in this way. I see a lot of you are having a conceptual misunderstanding, and I understand like spatial reasoning, right, is a factor here, but we have to make sure that we understand this. Because if you try to throw a hook like this, all you're doing is throwing a bad jab. Yeah. And you see people do this. You see, especially like MMA fighters, they do this jab. And it's a slap, right? And it's useless as a jab. It's inherently useless. There is no function for that whatsoever. Unless you're trying, I don't even know. I don't even want to get into that stupid discussion. Right? When I'm throwing a hook, I got to get around this. Or I got to get around this. Or I got to get around this. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so like when we're thinking, I need you to think about this is the target of a hook. This is the target of a hook. It's the same thing with a roundhouse kick, right? I don't throw a kick that loops around to hit him in the front of the thigh. I do that if I miss. It's the same thing. That's the kick, right? This is the target. This is the target. This is the target. With a hook, it's up here. Anything from the top left, or left on your side, right on his side, to like right here. If it's in boxing, he's probably going to have a belt that comes across here, right? I hope you're paying attention, Joni.
Yes, I am.
All right. So, from here to here, this is your target. It's not here. Okay? I know I'm kind of belaboring the point, but it's important. So go back to the bags, and we're going to try this again. And I want you to focus on the sides of your target.
Does anybody need to see how their elbow should be placed?
Yeah, I think everybody does. Everybody does.
All right. So for the hook, I think this is one that is kind of tricky. You're not going to start away from your body. You got to keep your hands tight and pulled in, and you want to start from the same plane. So if you have one hand that's super low, one hand that's super high, it's going to give you a lot of problems. So bring your hands up. As you turn and rotate, I know you don't want to be super rigid, right? You want the punch to evolve as you throw it, right, into a hinge, right? He's going to start by turning out, and when he throws his hook, that's where he creates the rigidness of his punch, right? And it comes up and across the eye line.
Notice how my elbow follows my fist. Yeah. This is the plane he's talking about. Your arm, you want to make as many straight lines as possible. And the straight lines come from the 90-degree angle. So I make a 90-degree angle of my arm. Does everybody see that? Right? Looks like an L. I'm also trying to get parallel to the ground. Because if there's a dip in elevation in the elbow, you're either going to punch like this, or if the fist is too low, you're going to punch like this. Doesn't do you any good. Remember, every punch is striking with the elbow. The arm here just gets in the way, right? This is your moment arm. So when I hit him, this is structural. Right? This, right? There's structure behind this. If I do it like this, there's no structure, because this is what we see a lot. We see you hitting on the inside of the fist here.
And the thing that we want to look at is when you're landing and you're throwing constantly, when you're striking with that cushion, it's pulling your nerves and your wrist back.
Yeah, that's where you're going to get a lot of pain in your wrist.
So you want to be landing correctly with the knuckles flat and your thumb up, even if it means slowing down to throw the punch.
Yep.
Even if it feels very robotic.
Yep. It should.
Yeah.
Because then it's going to be easier to make more consistent. Right? A big part of this is being concise. All right, so everybody hold your arm up like this. All right, if you're left-handed, put your right leg forward. If you're right-handed, put your left leg forward. All right, so everybody who's right-handed, hold your right hand up. Your left hand should be like this. Okay, now, everybody pull your left shoulder back by rotating. Like this, right? This is the hook motion. I know it feels and looks kind of silly, right? But creating motor awareness is a big part of helping in our circumstances here. All right, now what should your feet be doing? Pivoting, rotating. Good. Now, if your arm isn't straight, make it straight. If you are looking down at your head and the rotation of your arm, let's say this is your head right here, your arm should look like this. That's your fist. And it should go in a circular motion like that. What I'm seeing is a lot of people punching like that. It's not a hook. It can be what we call a chip shot hook. But notice how my elbow is still directly behind my fist. It needs to be coming straight out of whatever the target is. So if I'm punching him just with a really shallow hook, I hit him like that. If I'm hitting him with a deep hook, I hit him like that. You see the difference? Here, right? Still rotating, I'm just hitting him earlier in the rotation sequence. If I want to hit him with a deeper hook, see, I missed because I'm in range for a shallow hook. Right? I need to be here to hit him with the deep hook.
Closer.
Closer. Yeah. You see that? Because that's the distinction between hitting him here, where the moment arm is like this versus like this. Can you see that distinction there?
Yeah.
So you need to be thinking in terms of like a hemisphere, right? A quarter circle. And hitting them at some point in that quarter circle. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Everybody back on the bag, and we're going to throw a body hook, lead hook, like this to the liver. Then we're going to stand up and throw it to the head. So it's going to be 7-3. All right, so drastic improvement. And I know a lot of people are like, why are we talking about this so much? Well, we're talking about this so much so that we can actually make you better instead of just watching you do something not correctly, right? And in our specific circumstances for this class, that's important because the more we can introduce novel understanding to biomechanics, the better. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the distinction between the lead hook and the rear hook. So when I stand like this, what's the difference between my left foot and my right foot?
Lead.
Is what?
One's the lead foot.
Right, one's the lead. What else? Stability. No, what's the difference between one and the other?
One's on one side, one's on the other side.
All right, one's on one side. No.
Yeah, one's pointing forward.
One's pointed forward, one pointed out. Good.
One's the
Center line. All right, hey, at least we know the words, right? No. One foot is back and one foot is forward, which means which side is closer to my opponent? The lead side, which means when I throw my hooks, if I was standing like this, they would be mechanical mirrors of each other. But because I stand at an oblique angle, that means the angle's going to be different. That means the farthest I can throw this hook and still be effective, look at where my fist is relative to my elbow. When I throw my lead hook, look where my fist is relative to my elbow. So if this is the motion of the lead hook, the rear hook, if let's say that X is the target, the rear hook is going to land somewhere around here or maybe here. You see how that's different from this? You're not going to get that 90-degree angle on your opponent. I can remember further this is trouble. So when I throw my rear hook, I'm not expecting to get this. Because you see how close I have to be. This is untenable. What's he going to do? He's going to maul my face off before I get into that position. With the lead hook, I can absolutely get close to 90 degrees. I can still put my arm at a 90-degree angle to throw the rear hook. But notice where the rear hook's going to land, or how it's going to land. I'm going to try to come in through the right side window, right side from my perspective. Right? So we talk about the straight coming in like this. We talk about the cross coming in like this. Talk about an overhand coming in like this. A hook is just another option. Now, typically, I'm going to step a little bit further out to close the range and get as close to that 90-degree landing point as I can. So I stagger. And from here, look, you see that? Now I can get that shot. Not always going to be viable. So sometimes I have to reorient. One of the things I do is I teach what they used to call a British overhand, where I throw my left or my right hook from over here, because now I can throw it with 90-degree delivery, but it's coming straight up the middle. So you can either turn out, come across, or come in and throw it straight up. When you're effective with your footwork, it gives you those options. What we see, however, people get squared up too close and they start doing this nonsense. And they take all the power out of their hook. Right? This comes down to acceleration. At the end of the day, it's the force and velocity that's going to be what delivers the power, especially if you have a good kinetic chain from the floor up. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now what I want you to practice, you don't have to try to do it hard. This is all about spatial awareness. Throw the lead hook like this and then throw the rear hook at like a 45-degree angle. So 90-degree angle relative to your opponent, 45-degree angle. And if you feel like you don't have adequate rotation, try stepping. Like that. Okay?
Target stay the same. Chip.
What?
Is your target staying the same?
It's going to be, you're going to aim here-ish versus here. But when you throw the left one, it's going to be here. If you throw the right one, it's going to be about here. Does that make sense? If you're looking at a clock, it would be like hitting 9 o'clock and then hitting like 4:35. All right? All right, give it a try. All right, so we practice the over rotation so that you can get the understanding of this, right? When I throw the hook, my weight shifts, right? Now, when you want to throw it fast and you don't want to create a huge opportunity for your opponent to hit, you just go from here. See? But we practice this. Because it gives you more amplitude. It lets you feel every part, every micro sensation that comes along through the process. Because you make it bigger. It helps get you a gross motor understanding. Does that make sense? Practice the big so that you can feel it. The better you can feel it, the better you can make it consistent. Then you reduce the amplitude. Like this. I'm here, I'm here. Now, when I'm throwing to the other side, like I was showing earlier, I don't want to be here. Bad position. So, typically, I try to get myself to here. And now I can step. Right? I can't get as much rotation, so I get the movement, the offline movement, to augment the power of the punch. Does that make sense? Here, turn, step. That's what we're working. And then, over here, I can use the step. Same thing. Start here. That's it. It's simple if you let it be. But you got to get the mechanical foundation correct before you can do it. Does that make sense? All right, everybody grab water, grab a partner. We're going to do some real quick partner drills.